Alright, so this is problem 4 from chapter 11, and the problem says a uniform 300 Newton trapdoor in a floor is hinged at one side. Find the net upward force needed to begin to open it and the total force exerted on the door by the hinges. A, if the upward force is applied at the center, and B, if the upward force is applied at the center of the edge opposite the hinges. So this is kind of my trap door. It has 300 newtons coming down, and this is where the hinge is over here. And so for part A, we want to know how much force would it require to begin to open the trap door if we exerted a force in the center of the door. So we know that the force is going to be equal to force times 1/2 the length of the trap door. Then it's going to be equal to the weight also times the length. And since we're just barely beginning to open it, those have to equal 0 because it's just as the door begins to move. So we know that the force times the length divided by 2 is going to be equal to 300 times the length divided by 2. And we can cancel those because they're both on the same side. And so we get that the force needed to open the trap door, if you're pushing at the very center, has to be equal to the weight of the door, or 300 newtons. So then for part B, the question wants to know what kind of force would we need if we applied the force to this edge, the far edge of the trapdoor in the center. So we know that for that one, the force is going to be equal to force times the full length of the trapdoor. It's got to be equal, and then we're going to minus the weight of the door times the distance to the center of mass, and that has to be equal to 0 again because it's just barely as the door is opening. We're not opening it fully, we're just barely getting it to start to move. So know that the force times the length is going to be equal to 300 times the length divided by 2. So we get that the force is going to be equal to 2. So we can cancel the length on both sides. So we get that the force is going to be equal to 300 divided by 2, which is equal to 150 newtons. So we would have to apply 150 newtons to the far end of the trap door to get it to just barely begin to move. And that's how you do that problem.